How we doing, folks? It's another Warlord Wednesday, right? So we're gonna come in and we're gonna talk about Cruel Seas. So I'm sure videos have been all over the place. I'm gonna do a small, short set of series. One just about everything in the starter box. One just look through on the actual book itself. And then I'll take a day or two, put together my miniatures. We'll showcase a picture or two of them around maybe. And then we'll come through with some actual playthroughs, a couple shooting phases, movement phases, things of that nature. And then we'll run through like the 1 or 2 first scenarios. So inside the starter box, we're gonna start with a Cruel Seas quick start. And pretty much get the breakdown of the different types of ships, right? When you're using these, it breaks down Series 1, Series 2s based off of the year. So you don't need all the pieces. And it shows you a completed product so that we make sure that we're all doing what we're supposed to, right? Of course, we got the book. It's in depth, very simplistic. It's got multiple nations inside the core rulebook. A lot of history, quick reference sheets for when you're hitting and movement, stuff like that. And then exceptional damage, all those natures. And we'll go more in that when we do the actual book walkthrough. Comes with dice, the German dice that we're familiar with from the releases, the Black British dice, and then some standard D6s and a couple D10s, because if you're not aware yet, the D10 has a significant play in this game, but as well as D6 for some of the culminating damage from weapon systems as you add it up. Similar to Bolt Action and Gates of Antares, but now they're blue. Kind of like when you shoot a heavy caliber weapon at a ship and miss. If the ship doesn't move, or you get the opportunity to shoot again, it can have effects on shooting that ship. We'll talk about that in the rules, but once the ship moves, it's pretty much gone. Some blast slash smoke. I would be careful with this because my initial read, smoke generators. So instead of tailoring these like we would in maybe some of our other games and just make it straight up plumes, you may be wanting to make little smoke streams based on different distances, and it can be different every time that you use it. So here we have what we'll be using to monitor speed and whatever, but it's also your wakes, and when your ships cross over, it can cause some, if your ship's smaller, some serious issues. And then your markers. These markers go on the cards. There's so much in the box. Now the cards, they clip on. They'll be moving back and forth. Allows you to track a couple different things. Major one being the damage, right? But then there's the different ships. You'll notice inside the corners, we have other options. You can pay for other upgrades. Increased caliber weapon systems from the base model, smoke generators, depth charges, things of that nature. And so there'll be a little bit of record keeping in that. Yeah. For the bigger ships, so we got lots of them, right? Shouldn't be any issues, lots of them. Colors, a little bit of history, you know, when they'd be shooting, they didn't just necessarily charge across with their flag streaming in the air. That kind of identify you a little bit quicker as the enemy, even in poor weather conditions when they're trying to use binoculars and stuff to identify each other. If you get a giant German flag hanging up there, people can catch on real quick. But in the event that they would surrender, which there is a surrender factor in the game, and your opponent can attempt to deny that through kind of like a morale integrity check type thing, which is a check system. And then they can keep shooting at you if they pass. Most likely you can surrender, and then there's the aspect of capturing ships and stuff like this for the narrative campaign scenario. In addition, it comes with a little bit of 2D terrain. I'm sure a lot of modelers out there are gonna fancy up their battlefields, but just to get started and run the base scenarios to get a feel for it is perfect. It's a quick start, so it's perfect. And then there's all these different types of markers. There's the turn apparatuses. And then we sit down here, we got fire markers, whether or not your crews hit. You can lose weapon systems because of that, or the usage of them. Smoke screen droplets. For templates, they get spaced. They have to be within certain inches of each other, centimeters of each other. But you could also use that smoke and model that smoke. So we got depth charges. There's actually one really cool veteran skill where you can try to scoot across the bow of a ship and drop a depth charge right in front of them and wreak havoc. Pretty unique. Radar markers for if you upgrade. Different weapon markers, the more crew hits, bridge hits, rotor hits, engine hits, those all fall under the massive damage factor. Have a huge play or effect in your gameplay. Then we roll through, and it comes with a folded up map, which is two-sided and perfect for the scenarios and the start and get started scenarios. And it's great because it all fits in this little box, and you can travel somewhere and do a demo with one of your buddies. You can roll into your local shop, spin a copy of theirs out. The space requirement just to run a demo is not that much. I foresee this being 1,000 point versus 1,000 point type thing. So when you start building your ships and your upgrades and stuff like that, maybe that's where we go for more sizable battles. And my rough guess puts a 4x6 as the 1,000 point by 1,000 point. I'm gonna play it out and see where we go. My fleets are on the way. And then of course, the good old British with their Vospr's. And we talked about this, they got both sets on here. So as the evolution of combat went, they upgrade. But they don't get rid of a ship with a gun when it's this bad, right? When they're at a world war. There's 6 total, 3 sprues. If I remember my points right, they're like 50 something, 60 something points, generic without upgrades. So the 6 of them, if we're upgrading, and depending if we're taking veteran or not, we're getting close to half the impact of a fleet. You got in there 1 or 2 of your other ships for heavy caliber weapons, some of them coming in at 200. There's a couple destroyers in that book, the 400 or 500. Fill up the points list super fast. And then Germans, the good old Kriegsmarines, they have 4. Ships are a little more pricey. I think because of higher caliber guns, still classed as a medium ship. I'm very interested to see how they play. I play a lot of German, so Kriegsmarine is kind of a definite. And then the last sprue is torpedoes. And when we fire these, they come out using the markers to see, and they can fire out at a degree based on the location of your ship. Then they get tracked, and they have ranges, but then there's also the dud test. So if it does even hit, there's a chance it's a dud. And then there's a chance that it causes significant damage, or doesn't hit damage. You can hit your own ships if you're maneuvering. The Germans have, just like a zigzag torpedo, where they scientifically spend a lot of energy and money and research into making torpedoes that were harder to trace, and so they have the opportunity to turn in here. But it's an upgrade you got to pay for. It could be extremely dangerous to your own ships, but it's an option, and I think it would be hysterical to put a torpedo in the side of one of my own ships one day. Studying, there's a lot of good stuff in this book, a lot of good stuff, to include what happens when you crash into somebody, when they crash into you, damage, not only from small arms but also torpedoes, a flamethrower option, right? I'm sure these ship crews got whatever they could get. A mortar option, you can upgrade and toss a mortar on there, and they'll use what they can when they can in this small ship combat. The first scenarios, very, very basic. Like the first one, you can't even use torpedoes, right? It's just to get you through the muscle memory of building up movement and basic shooting. And then it advances through the scenarios. And the first ones are pretty quick, but then it advances to where you gotta coast in, slow down, and drop off some secret agents, or like a demolition team or somebody that's gonna go do some sort of secret ops on the shoreline, and the enemy is patrolling to do interdiction missions to prevent that. And so you gotta cruise through at slow speed not to be spotted, and carefully put your ship up against shore without crashing it, dislodge these troops, and then your mission's not over until you can bug out. Now has the opportunity to do a replay where you got to go pick up those troops, or vice versa, things of that nature. There's a couple of transport, escort type things where you cargo ships moving from here to there. Lots more ships on the way, obviously, right? Just some insight, right? You don't generally make rules with so many ships in them and only drop 2 or 3 sprues of ships. So if you've seen it here, not only is it planned, but it's probably there. And we're gonna take just 1 minute, right? Just so you know. So there's like a shipbuilding option here. Obviously those hundreds, if not thousands, of unique ships built in some nations that they may or may not get to because of the rarity. There's a shipbuilder. So depending on whether or not it has rockets, torpedoes, whether it has radar and gun detectors, shells, searchlights, degaussing equipment, its skill set for the crew, number of hit points, you can use this to tailor for a friendly match, right? A specific type of ship that you want. Maybe even for some sort of scenario, like a cruiser that's stuck in dry dock that these guys find out about, that got damaged out in the open sea fights, and they decide, hey, we can go in there and sneak in at night, drop a couple torpedoes, and get out. And you know, maybe that's one of the things to do. But there's a lot of ships, And so British fleet, tons of information in there. German Kriegsmarine, tons of information in there. The Italians, the U.S. Navy, Imperial Japanese, Soviet Navy. It's there. It's got guidance for your campaigns and stuff like that. Critical hit short sheets. The reference pages are pretty on point here. This is not like you're gonna take this down quick, especially if you're running a similar ships in your fleet. You'll pick this up because a lot of it is the different types of weapons and things of that nature. Just remember centimeters. Critical damage. And probably the most hit image on Facebook for Warlord Games right now, the index page. It's a great addition to organizing it. The scenarios are in there. There's a chapter on repairs. If you are repaired, you know, coming to a stop and fixing. What happens to torpedoes after the ship that fired them gets blown up? Obviously, they're still in the game until they either hit something or get stuck in the mud. There's the basic rules and there's advanced rules. Not that many advanced rules. So the first couple scenarios run you through the basics, and then they put you into the advanced rules. It's a good game. Looking forward to it. Have a great day.